Hey, so today we're here to talk about why family meals matter so much. So
Yes.
much. Yeah.
Yes.
If there's one thing that is essential to ensure that your kids develop a healthy relationship with both food and
Mm,
everyone in the
mm,
family unit,
totally.
it's eating together for
Mm.
as many meals as possible together as a family. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Bonding over food,
Mm.
sharing experiences and delicious meals is so critical.
Yeah.
It teaches social skills, builds family relationships, and supports your kids to develop a healthy relationship with food. Sharing meal times with your children will positively impact on all of your eating experiences and can dramatically improve the health of your whole family.
Yeah, because children who eat as many meals as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and as circumstances allow, we're not saying that every single meal has to be
Yes.
eaten together as a family, but as many as possible are definitely more open to trying new foods. We know that research has supported that as
Yep.
well,
Yep.
and to developing this healthy relationship with food that we all kind of seek.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
Well, as humans, we're wired for connection.
yes,
And if you go back through our ancestors, we connect over food. We have big
absolutely.
celebrations over food. We care for one another over food.
Mm.
And a Harvard study confirmed that children having dinner with their family most days were also more likely to consume more fruits and veggies and to generally have a higher intake of nutrients.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Another study proposed that sharing just 3 meals a week reduced the odds of children becoming overweight adults by 12%.
Wow.
Yeah, so the health benefits extend way beyond the physical. Dining together as a family is often the time we socialize
Yep.
and we converse. It's the time you can check in,
Mm.
like, how are you? We can share stories. So it's the time when, if you are concerned about one of your kids or your partner, you can kind of share your
Yep.
experiences or, yeah, just that
Connection, attunement.
attunement,
Yeah.
yeah, that we've spoken about before, that in
Mm.
our busy lives today, we just don't get enough of. So
Mm.
eating together is so important.
Yeah. And it's amazing how I know my kids often marvel. Well, we get so much out of our dining experience together. And my kids often marvel when they go to another family's house and they're like, oh, we just ate, just the two of us. They just can't believe that that they got to do that almost. It's,
Yeah.
for them, it's a bit of a treat, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. So when we eat together, it's not only are we like checking in and conversing, but as parents, we get to kind of model and demonstrate healthy eating, social values, table
Yes.
manners, the art of conversation. It sounds so simple and almost old fashioned
It
and a
does.
bit fuddy duddy, but
Yep.
man, it is so important. Like if you're out with a friend and they don't have table manners,
Yep.
or if I know for me as a parent, when my kids brought friends over that didn't have table manners, I remember how that really impacted me. Like it's manners and waiting your turn and letting someone talk and then you talk. And
Like you even said before, the art of conversation.
yes,
I know probably you've just triggered a memory where I had a teacher when my son was really little in kindy say to me, "Oh, we can tell that Jesse's a child who's been spoken with, not spoken to." And I think it stuck with me because at the time I was thinking, "Oh my God," I was kind of doubting my parenting skills,
yeah, yeah.
and I thought, it's dinner. It's dinner time. Like, I'm not like an overly, believe it or not, like a chatty kind of person. I
Yeah,
wasn't someone that was constantly talking to my kids.
yeah,
But at dinner, we'd have conversations about world events, about,
yeah.
things that were going on in their lives, things that were going on, between my husband and I. We would just talk. We would talk about
Yes.
the food we were eating. We were talking about pets, whatever. We just talked.
Yes.
And like you said, it seems old-fashioned, but it's so profound.
It's huge. And I just heard a podcast the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how they're concerned that we're losing the art of conversation. And especially our kids that are just always on a
Device,
screen
yep.
are losing the art of just having conversations.
Yeah, you can see how that
can happen. Totally. And how they're preferring text because it's more predictable than talking to someone.
Absolutely.
So this is, I feel, becoming more and more important.
I can remember confiscating my son's phone once and him saying, but how am I going to know what's going on with the party? You know, you had a birthday party or something coming up. And I said to him, well, just ask everyone at school tomorrow. You can't do that. It's all being discussed on the phone. I'm thinking, wow.
I know. Yeah.
Like, so does that make it off limits at school for you to have a discussion about it? I just found that the most, but as I said, we haven't been raised with this technology, so we probably are old and fuddy-duddy, to be honest, really.
So true. So true.
But, you know, I know I've even read studies that have confirmed that sharing meals through the teen years actually reduces the likelihood of development of eating disorders and depression, as well as actually children being less likely to smoke and drink alcohol and try illicit drugs. So again, such a simple thing.
Yes.
But the ongoing profound effects of it is just phenomenal, really.
Totally.
It blows my mind every time I read a new study on this topic.
Yeah. Well, you think of living with teenagers, and if you don't have that meal together, you cannot see them. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I know kids that
that's foundational though, isn't it? Because like you can't just start having meals together when they're teenagers. It's what they're used to. You know, it's just something we do as a family, and we only do it because we did it when they were little.
Yes. So true.
Yeah.
I think of the teen clients I have and how they really want to be seen and attuned to, and like there's a desperate need for it, even though they resist it and push back and seem like they don't want us around. Like it's a really important time to be spending time with them, and dinner provides that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But something really important when we're eating with our kids is they watch us. They watch how we respond to food. They watch how we respond to each other. So they kids do what we do, not what we say.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
So dinner's a really great opportunity to kind of teach your kids healthy eating habits.
Yes.
Something that's really important and has crept into so many families is devices. So
distractions all around, isn't it?
Yeah,
television.
Yes.
And when we're talking about little ones, it can be toys as well.
Yes.
Even, but any form of distractions. But 100% the biggest distraction these days does seem to be the device.
Even as the parent, right? Like we're kind of, the device means our work and
totally our lives are dictated by these things sometimes.
Definitely.
Especially when you said you work and you connected to technology by your profession.
Yes, exactly. But not having devices at the table, like it's 20, 30 minutes a family meal. And we were both watching Simon Sinek talk about the power of the mobile phone. And, you know, like if you're with someone and you put the phone on the table, you're kind of sending a signal to that person that they're not as important as the other relationships through the phone. Yeah. And so it's something to really think about. I heard someone else again yesterday on a podcast, and sorry, I cannot remember who, but they were talking about what is in our phones.
Yeah.
And what's in our phones is all this content, you know, like newspapers worth and movies and access to all this entertainment that our brain is just really drawn to, you know, all this dopamine hits coming out of the phone.
Right and center.
And so that when we're sitting with somebody, they know what that phone means to our brain as well.
Yes.
You know, so it is
absolutely.
this thing that sucks us both away from each other.
Yes. And it's not enough to have the phone on the table but put it face down. The same message is still being construed, isn't it?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of it. I've sat down before at dinner or, you know, gone out for dinner or whatever or in a meeting, and I put my phone on the table, but I think I'll put it face down, like that's more respectful almost. But the pull is still there. The distraction is absolutely still there.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think just moving away from devices, and we won't harp on about that because it is a touchy subject for a lot of people. making sure that your kids are hungry heading into dinner is another really important strategy to ensure that, family meals kind of run relatively smoothly. If they've been given snack after snack, and particularly snacks late in the day, and they have that appetite, then dinner and sitting down with you as a family is just not going to be as appealing. And you'll find that they'll fuss twice as much. They'll be way, way more picky. So my personal general rule, when my kids were little and even now that they're older and I see my son like opening the fridge just as I'm serving out dinner, is that there are no stacks for, a good couple of hours before meal times. Look, I'm less strict and diligent with this now that they pretty much eat whatever I kind of serve to them. But when there've been fussy phases or picky phases that we've been through, because that 100% happens, like pickiness kind of is something that can come and go.
Totally.
I've really drilled down on that snacking of not allowing them to snack for a good couple of hours. And, if they're moaning and they're getting to that kind of hangry stage, which isn't ideal either, I will generally give them something off the chopping board or a little taster of something that I'm kind of preparing. And, like if they balk it, I don't know, if I'm cutting up carrots and I give them a piece of carrot and they're like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. Well, they're obviously not that hungry. Is my thoughts on that. But just making sure that they actually do have an appetite when they head to the table is just so important.
I remember this being something really important when you and I first met ages ago, and Eva was little and she would snack and then not have that big protein meal. And it was like an aha moment for me. Like, oh, far out. She's snacked because she's getting home from school and snacking and then not having that good bit of protein and then waking up cranky.
We've had a similar situation where we're actually on a holiday and our friends had taken a lot of snacks for the kids because their kids were big snackers. So she took, half a suitcase full of snacks and things like rice cakes and stuff like that. So she'd be doling them out all afternoon and my kids weren't used to the snacking in between meals. So come mealtime, they were just sitting there like, all the kids were fussing, all of them. And it was a really difficult situation because, I knew why they were fussing, but I knew that they were also very like that was part of their process was to eat snacks. So, I just had to have a quiet word with my kids that the snacks were off limit for them in that situation. So, it's again, like anything, you live and you learn, don't you?
Boundaries, hey.
Yep, it is. It's boundaries, which I think is a great next point.
Yes, I agree. And I know for me, boundaries have been a massive challenge. And
I really think for everyone, boundaries are a challenge. I really, really do. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as we're talking, I do feel old-fashioned. Like these things we're talking about, table manners and but I realize like now my kids are 19 and 17, this stuff's really important.
Yes.
Like it's such a strong foundation.
Yeah. And boundaries, I know the one thing that I learned from you when I felt mean, like, when we first met, our kids were young and I used to think, we talk about boundaries and it actually relieved me a lot for you to say to me once that, boundaries make kids feel safe and secure within the relationship because at the time I was feeling like the big bad witch of the West, instilling these boundaries and having these boundaries within our family unit. And, my kids constantly, especially my daughter, was big at pushing back. She's tenacious, strong-willed child. And I felt that, and I can remember thinking, okay, well, this really helped me to make me really solid on boundaries was that. The safety aspect. So maybe if you explain that.
Totally. So one of my teachers, Cornelia Elbrecht, used to talk about if there's no boundaries, there's chaos inside. People feel anxious. When there's boundaries, people know where they stand, they can relax inside. And our kids are the same. When we are clear on the expectations and we kind of communicate that to our kids, everyone knows where they stand. kids will push up against them to check, like, how much do you mean
Yes.
that? Can I rely on you? Will you hold me? There's so much that a kid is doing when they're pushing up against you.
Yeah.
And you might not notice that kids push more when you're stressed. They pushed more when things are a little bit chaotic, because they're testing, like, how solid are you? Am I safe with you? Is this okay? So boundaries are just so important. And I guess something that really helped me with boundaries was me getting really clear.
Yeah.
Okay, what do I want? So what do I want at dinner time? And I guess I went back to my childhood. In my childhood, we all sat down at the table. And
no one was getting up and down and that yo-yoing.
Yeah.
I worked as a nanny for a period of my life, as I know you did as well.
Yes.
And the one thing that I was very firm on was, because I was one of a string of nannies, the kids had no boundaries around food whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I was extremely pedantic around that, and it was difficult because they were used to just up and down, running around the table, not sitting to eat.
Yeah, yeah. So you getting really familiar and
clear
on
your own family boundaries.
Exactly, and how you want it to be, so that mealtimes can be enjoyable. So you can get to the goal of how was your day and checking in.
Because otherwise they can become quite
not enjoyable,
disruptive, and just
no one
stressful.
Looks forward to them.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's okay, I guess, as a parent, because I needed this when I was a young parent. I needed to know it's okay to set boundaries, and they will flip out and push against. That's what they're wired to do. But
and that's normal.
Yes, it doesn't mean the boundaries are wrong. Or that you don't do it. It means that you just stay clear. Why am I setting this boundary? I'm setting this boundary because I want their life to be easier. I want their relationships to be easier. I want them to have good health. That's why we set boundaries. We're not trying to be the wicked witch. We are wanting the best for them. And that helped me as a young parent to remember, why am I doing this? It's for good outcomes for them.
And now we have the benefit of hindsight. And I have one adult child. You have an adult child. We both have an adult child. And we were talking before how we've had conversations with them where they actually are appreciative of the fact that we set these boundaries in their lives. And that's really validating, because at the time when you're in the trenches with young kids, it doesn't feel that way at all.
It doesn't. It's difficult.
So I think finally I would just like to say, just really try as hard as you can not to stress or bring any negative emotion to the dinner table. Particularly I can understand when kids push back or don't want to eat what you've made. This seems to be a massive stressor for parents. And I mean, look, it's the purpose behind this podcast in some ways is to try and help to support you through this. And, it is, again, something that we're going to go into great detail, because there is no magic wand. There's no wonderful one cure for this. There's lots of little things that you can incorporate into your day-to-day life, like having a boundary around what you expect at the dinner table. But, we do understand how frustrating it is to deal with fussy eating, but the way that you deal with fussy eating will either perpetuate it or work towards resolving it. And again, that's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here.
And it's so much more than eating. That you are supporting and resolving. Like so much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just try to share at least, one meal or dinner with your family, your whole family. And, when your kids are really little, this might, like if they're very, very young and you've got a partner coming home later in the evening and you want to be able to eat with them, I generally recommend to have like a little mini meal with your child, because that's super, super important to have, to role model, like we said before, role model eating, and then have, your main meal. But at some point your child is going to be old enough to push out,
Yeah.
hopefully, to when you can all together eat as a family. And look, it doesn't have to be dinner. It can be breakfast.
I was just going to say,
Yeah,
even if it's brekkie,
weekends, weekends are a great option as well,
Yeah.
to connect and to sit
Yeah.
and share a meal. And
And you'll find that the more you do share meals with
Yeah.
your kids, the less issues you have around food.
yeah,
You know,
100%.
as long as you're not making.
Yes, you're not
There's-
bringing that emotion, that
Yeah.
negativity and emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, you can't expect fuss pots to come around immediately, but I do believe that with persistence, with this one particular thing of just eating together as a family,
Yeah.
they will eventually find the same pleasure in eating healthy food as you do.
I reckon too. Cool.
That's it.